Hello everyone. We have the list of the 50 countries with the highest levels of persecution against Christians from Open Doors. Do you think your country is on the list? Let's check it out together. What is the World Watch List? The Open Doors World Watch List is a unique, reliable, comprehensive ranking of the countries where the persecution of Christians is most extreme. Unique, because as far as possible our data is gathered at grassroots level using in-country networks and local partners on the ground. Reliable, because over 3 decades the list has gained a reputation for credible, dependable information. Our approach and analysis are independently audited by the International Institute for Religious Freedom. Comprehensive, because it measures persecution in all its forms, not only violence, but also the level of freedom Christians have to practice their faith in their private, family, community, national and church life. This data is converted into a persecution score, which is then ranked into categories. High 41 to 60 points, very high 61 to 80 points, extreme 81 to 100 points. What do you mean by persecution? Persecution takes many forms, from insults and abuse to discrimination in education and the workplace to outright violence. We might characterize these different forms as smash and squeeze. The smash represents overt violence against Christians because of their faith: bombing, arson, shooting, rapes, kidnappings, forcible evictions. The squeeze represents the suffocating restrictions faced by many Christians in daily life: red tape and legal restrictions, an inability to publicly display your faith, discrimination woven into the fabric of society. Smash is physical, visible, violent. Squeeze is insidious, structural, suffocating. But both have the same aim: the erasure of Christianity in their country, region, tribe, or family. North Korea population, 26.1 million, 400,000 Christians. Leader Kim Jong-un, persecution score 96. Being discovered to be a Christian in North Korea is effectively a death sentence. Believers will either be deported to labor camps or killed on the spot. And it's not just them. Their whole family gets the same fate. It's impossible for Christians to live freely in North Korea. Meeting for worship is extremely dangerous and must be done in utmost secrecy. Even being found to own a Bible could mean you are killed. Somalia population, 17.3 million, a few hundred Christians. Leader President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud. Persecution score 93. Christians are a high-value target for murder by militant group Al-Shabaab. They want to wipe out all Christians from Somalia. Leaving Islam is also seen by many as a betrayal of Somali culture and clan, so new believers face harassment, abuse, and even murder from their own families and communities. Church life in Somalia is almost non-existent, and dangers for Christians are increasing. Libya population, 7.1 million, 35,100 Christians. Leader Interim Prime Minister Abdul Hamid Dbeibeh. Persecution score 91. A small number of Libyans follow Jesus. It could cost them everything. Converts from Islam face the most intense violence from family and community. They risk house arrest, attack, abduction, sexual violence and murder. It is incredibly dangerous for converts to meet together to worship. Even Christians who aren't Libyan or converts are at risk from extremist groups, particularly in areas where Islamic militants are active. Eritrea population, 3.7 million, 1.7 million Christians. Leader President Isaias Afwerki, persecution score 89. Eritrea is known as the North Korea of Africa due to its intense authoritarian government. Eritrea only recognizes 3 heavily monitored Christian denominations: Eritrean Orthodox, Roman Catholic, and Lutheran. So anyone who follows Jesus outside of these denominations is at constant risk. Around 1,000 Eritrean Christians are currently in prison without being charged with any crime. Some have been held for more than 10 years, enduring shocking conditions. Yemen population, 31.8 million, a small number of Christians. Leader, President Rashad al-Alimi, persecution score 89. Following Jesus in Yemen continues to be extremely dangerous. Yemeni society is strongly Islamic, conservative and tribal, and the tribal punishment for denouncing Islam can be death or banishment. Most believers are Yemeni and come from Muslim backgrounds. As conversion from Islam is forbidden by law, Christians must keep their faith secret or risk severe repercussions from their families, the authorities, or radical groups. This can include divorce, loss of custody of children, arrest, interrogation, and even honor killings. 6. Nigeria population, 222.2 million, 103 million Christians. Leader President Bola Tinubu. Persecution score 88. Christians in Nigeria, particularly in the Muslim-majority north, continue to be terrorized with devastating impunity by Islamic militants and armed bandits. More believers are killed for their faith in Nigeria each year than everywhere else in the world combined. The attacks are often brutal and can involve destruction of property, abductions for ransom, sexual violence, as well as death. Believers are stripped of their livelihoods and driven from their homes, leaving a trail of grief and trauma. 7. Pakistan population, 234 million, 4.2 million Christians. Leader. Interim Prime Minister Anwarul Haq Kakar. Persecution score 87. Pakistan's blasphemy laws are often used to target minorities, but Christians are disproportionately affected. Even a baseless accusation can be extremely dangerous. The devastating attack in Jaranwala in August 2023 is a sobering reminder of the hostile environment Pakistan's Christians live in. The number of Christian girls and women abducted, abused, and forcefully converted to Islam is growing. Some are even killed. All Christians face institutionalized discrimination, given only jobs that are deemed degrading. Although historical churches are relatively free to worship, they are heavily monitored and have been targeted for bomb attacks. 8. Sudan population, 47.1 million, 2 million Christians. Leader, Lieutenant General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan. Persecution score 87. Violence against Christians has spiraled since civil war broke out in April 2023. Sudan have been making positive steps towards religious freedom, but coups and instability in the country are threatening to reverse that. At least 165 churches have been forcibly closed and others destroyed, and there has been a recent spike in Christian men being abducted and murdered by radical groups. There are fears that the conflict will give Islamic extremists a renewed foothold in the country. The Sudanese church urgently needs our prayers. 9. Iran population, 87 million, 1.2 million Christians. Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Persecution score 86. Conversion from Islam to Christianity is illegal in Iran, and anyone caught as a convert can be arrested and imprisoned. The authorities view conversion as an attempt by the West to undermine Islam and the Islamic government of Iran. Those who are detained can face abuse and torture in jail. Some Christians are released and monitored, and know a second arrest would mean a long prison sentence. Converts also face persecution from their families and communities, and loss of inheritance or forced marriage to a Muslim is common. 10. Afghanistan population, 41.7 million. A few thousand Christians. Leader, Hibatullah Akhundzada. Persecution score 84. If an Afghan Christian's faith is discovered, they may be killed or tortured into giving information about fellow believers. Since the Taliban takeover, many believers have fled and live as refugees in neighboring countries. Those who chose to stay or can't leave must keep their faith secret, or they may simply disappear. Women and girls are particularly vulnerable and often don't report sexual assault as it is seldom punished and because of the stigma it brings. Converts from Islam also face harsh punishment from their families and tribes. 11. India population, 1.4 billion, 71 million Christians. Leader Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Persecution score 83. Christians in India are increasingly under threat from Hindu extremists who believe that Indians ought to be Hindu and any other faith is not welcome in the country. More states are implementing anti-conversion laws that are used to target and intimidate Christians. Converts from Hinduism face extreme pressure from their families and communities. Footage of violent attacks is widely shared online. The disproportionate targeting of Christians during ethno-religious violence in Manipur in 2023 is a sobering reminder of the persecution Christians face in many parts of India. 12. Syria population, 20.6 million, 579,000 Christians. Leader President Bashar al-Assad. Persecution, score 81. Syria has a historic Christian community which has afforded some degree of openness in their faith, but Christians from other denominations can face great danger. The legacy of the takeover of Syria by groups with certain ideologies can still be seen. Large numbers of Christians left their place of origin to go to other majority Christian areas as IDPs, or have left the country. While some believers have returned to rebuild their lives and communities, there are still far fewer than there used to be. 13. Saudi Arabia population, 36.3 million, 2.2 million Christians. Leader Crown Prince Salman bin Abdulaziz Al Saud, persecution score 81. The small number of Saudi Christians is slowly increasing and they're becoming bolder, sharing their faith with others online, but it comes at great cost. Conversion from Islam to Christianity is unacceptable under Islamic law. If discovered, men and boys may be forced out of home, whereas women and girls are usually isolated and abused within the home. All converts risk being killed to restore the family honor. Foreign Christians who share their faith with Muslims or gather for church activities risk detention and deportation. 14. Mali population, 22.1 million, 497,000 Christians. Leader transition President Assimi Goïta, persecution score 79. Jihadist attacks continue to have a devastating impact on the country's small number of Christians. Violent attacks on Christians, churches, and Christian properties have increased, which is why Mali has risen on the World Watch List. Those who leave Islam to follow Jesus risk violence and pressure from their relatives and communities. But there is some good news too. In June 2023, Malians approved a draft constitution that included the country remaining a secular state, leading to hope for greater freedom for religious minorities. 15. Algeria population, 46,144,000 Christians. Leader President Abdelmajid Tebboune, persecution score 79. Violence against Algerian Christians is increasing and putting more believers in danger. State pressure has increased, with more Protestant churches forced to cease all activity and church leaders threatened with prosecution. Christian homes and businesses have been subject to more raids. Any Christian from a Muslim background faces intense persecution and opposition, and many feel they have to keep their faith secret. 16. Iraq population, 43.2 million, 154,000 Christians. Leader, President Abdul Rashid, persecution score 79. Iraq's Christian community continues to rebuild and restore as it heals from the horrors inflicted by so-called Islamic State. Many still suffer from trauma, though the Church is determined to remain and grow. Traditional Christian communities continue to face persecution from militant groups, as well as discrimination in employment and education. Christians who have converted from Islam often face intense pressure from their families and communities. They can be threatened, abused, lose family members, face forced marriage, or even be killed. 17. Myanmar population, 55.7 million, thus 4.5 million Christians. Leader General Min Aung Hlaing, persecution score 79. Myanmar remains mired in a violent conflict that is having a devastating impact on the country's Christian minority. Since the military coup in February 2021, Christians have encountered greater violence and tighter restrictions. Believers have been killed or driven from their homes, and churches have been indiscriminately attacked. Beyond the conflict, converts to Christianity find themselves persecuted by their Buddhist, Muslim or tribal families and communities. Communities who aim to stay Buddhist only make life for Christian families impossible. 18. Maldives population, 535,000 / a small number of Christians. Leader President Mohamed Muizzu, persecution score 78. This popular tourist destination declares itself to be 100% Muslim, so being a citizen of the Maldives means being a Muslim. Those who leave Islam must keep their faith secret. It's so dangerous that husbands, wives, and children may not even know of each other's faith. If discovered, believers may be stripped of their citizenship, isolated from society, and lose their state benefits for violating Sharia, Islamic law. Foreign Christians are forbidden from sharing their faith with Maldivians, and their gatherings are strictly monitored. 19 China population, 1.5 billion, 96.7 million Christians. Leader President Xi Jinping, persecution score 78. The situation in China has slowly and steadily deteriorated. Official churches are compelled to toe the party line allegiance and ideology, whilst unregistered churches are highly vulnerable to monitoring and closure. Christians who pursue or express their faith online do so at huge risk, and children under 18 are forbidden from attending church. Converts from Buddhist and Muslim backgrounds face enormous pressures to renounce their faith. 20 Burkina Faso population, 22.7 million, 5.3 million Christians. Leader President Ibrahim Traore, persecution score 75. Once the epitome of religious harmony, Burkina Faso is now plagued by Islamic extremism that's having a devastating impact on Christians. Political instability in the country has strengthened the influence of militant groups who are known to target Christians. The country has one of the world's severest displacement crises, with believers among those driven from their homes. Additionally, converts from Islam can face pressure and threats from their families and communities. 21 Laos population, 7.6 million, 212,000 Christians. Leader President Thongloun Sisoulith, persecution score 75. Laos has jumped 10 places in the latest ranking because of an alarming rise in violence against Christians. It comes against a backdrop of long-term hostility towards Christians. Surveillance of church activities by the communist authorities is common, forcing many house churches to operate under the radar. Meanwhile, converts are seen as traitors of their community who've angered spirits, with many receiving persecution from their own families. 22 Cuba population, 11.3 million, 7 million. Leader President Miguel Diaz-Canel, persecution score 73. In Cuba, anything deemed to be in competition with the Communist Party is quashed, and that includes Christianity. Church leaders and believers who speak out against human injustice or political corruption, or who dare to criticize the regime, risk harassment, smear campaigns, and even imprisonment. Churches must be registered, but the process is fraught with difficulty. Those that are registered do so under extreme scrutiny, including infiltration by security agents. 23 Mauritania population, 5,011,100 Christians. Leader President Mohamed Ould Ghazouani, persecution score 72. Mauritania is staunchly Islamic, making it very difficult for Christians to express their faith. For converts from Islam, it's almost impossible. Apostasy is legally punishable by death, although there are no known examples of this in recent years, but the threat remains. Converts risk expulsion from families and loss of livelihood. They may even be forced to leave the country. While foreign Christians are largely left alone, evangelism is forbidden and can lead to prosecution. 24 Morocco population, 38.2 million, 31,200 Christians. Leader King Mohammed VI, persecution score 71. This Muslim-majority country remains socially conservative, and this can make life challenging for Christians. Converts are particularly prone to hostility from their family, community, and the authorities. It's illegal to shake the faith of a Muslim, making it dangerous for Christians to evangelize. Government hostility largely stems from the threat Christianity poses to the king's authority, deriving from the claim that he's a descendant of the Islamic prophet. 25 Uzbekistan population, 34.8 million, 352,000 Christians. Leader President Shavkat Mirziyoyev, persecution score 71. Uzbekistan's authoritarian regime continues to stifle Christian freedom, with some believers viewed as extremists and spies trying to destroy the government. Whilst officially registered churches, e.g. Russian Orthodox Church, experience less scrutiny, non-traditional churches are particularly prone to police raids, threats, arrests, and fines, particularly unregistered Baptist, evangelical, and Pentecostal groups. Converts from Islam, meanwhile, can encounter severe pressure for their faith from their families and communities. 26 Bangladesh population, 169.4 million, 950,000 Christians. Leader Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, raised persecution score 71. In Bangladesh, converts to Christianity face the most severe restrictions, discrimination, and attacks. These believers are often accused of betraying their community. Bangladeshi converts often gather in small house churches due to the risk of attack. Any churches that evangelize among the Muslim majority face persecution, but even historical denominations like the Roman Catholic Church are increasingly targeted by death threats and attacks. 27 Niger population, 27.1 million, 66,600 Christians. Interim leader Abdurrahmani Chiani, persecution score 70. Last year's military coup has added to the growing hostility felt by many Christians across Niger. Islamic militants have already been growing in influence in Niger, leading to a rise in attacks on Christian churches and schools. In areas under militant control, church services are carried out under the shadow of potential violence or physical attack. Those who leave Islam to follow Jesus face pressure from their own families to renounce their new faith. 28 Car, Central African Republic population, 5.1 million, 3.8 million Christians. Leader President Faustin Archange Touadera, persecution score 70. The Central African Republic, Car, has been in constant conflict since 2013, and the persecution situation has changed very little in that period. Christian leaders who dare to denounce the violence have been threatened, and their church buildings have been attacked. The conflict has also resulted in the displacement of thousands of Christians who have lost their homes and livelihoods and now live in camps. Converts from Islam also face persecution from their family and local community. 29 Turkmenistan population, 6.3 million, 66,000 Christians. Leader President Serdar Berdimuhamedov, persecution score 70. Tight restrictions and close surveillance make it very hard for Christians to live out their faith. The totalitarian government of Turkmenistan uses a huge body of state agents for this monitoring, such as police, secret services, and local Muslim leaders. Christians from Muslim backgrounds bear the brunt of persecution, not just from authorities, but from their family, friends, and the local community. 30 Nicaragua population, 6.9 million, 6.5 million Christians. Leader, President Daniel Ortega, persecution score 70. Last year, Nicaragua entered the World Watch List top 50 for the first time. Now it has risen 20 places. President Ortega continues to see Christians as enemies of the government, and recent changes to the law have been used to label church leaders as terrorists. They have been harassed and arrested, and churches are fiercely monitored. The authorities want to silence and discredit the church. 31 Oman population, 5.4 million, /196,000 Christians. Leader Sultan Haytham bin Tariq Al Said, persecution score 69. Increasing violence against Christians has led to Oman rising 16 places on the World Watch List this year. Converts from Islam to Christianity face pressure from family to recant their new faith. This can include physical, mental, and emotional abuse, job loss, family expulsion, disinheritance, and losing custody of their children. Converts are likely to be socially ostracized and lose the necessary connections to find work. 32 Ethiopia population, 123.8 million, 74.7 million Christians. Leader Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, persecution, score 69. An increase in violent incidents is the main reason Ethiopia has risen several places on the World Watch List. Converts from Islam face social ostracism and other pressures, as well as attacks on churches, homes, and schools. Some persecution in the country sadly also comes from members of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church who target those who leave to join evangelicalism or other Protestant denominations. 33 Tunisia population, 12.2 million, 22,200 Christians. Leader President Kais Saied, persecution score 69. Tunisian Christians are not officially recognized and face a level of hostility that forces many to keep their faith secret. Persecution is particularly prevalent in the south of the country, where the Muslim population is more conservative and violent. Islamic militants are more active. The past year has seen a small increase in the number of church attacks. There are fears that persecution will worsen if President Saied remains in power. 34 Colombia population, 51.7 million, /49.1 million Christians. Leader, President Gustavo Petro, persecution 68. Church leaders and other Christians continue to be harassed, extorted, and murdered due to the violence around control of territories between armed guerrillas, drug gangs, and other armed groups. In some indigenous communities, there can be significant opposition toward anyone who has converted from traditional practices to follow Jesus. The Open Doors Children's Center provides a safe Christian education to the next generation of the church. 35 Vietnam population, 99.7 million, 9.6 million Christians. Leader President Vo Van Thuong, persecution score 68. For many Christians in Vietnam, following Jesus can bring intense hostility and even violence. Believers who convert from Buddhist or indigenous religions face intense pressure and violence for their faith. Most believers belong to ethnic minority groups, like the Hmong, and face social exclusion, discrimination, and attacks. Their homes are sometimes destroyed, and they are forced to leave their villages. Church meetings face constant surveillance and frequent raids. 36 Bhutan population, 796,000, 19th of 500 Christians. Leader King Jigme Khesar Namgyel Wangchuk, persecution score 68. No churches are officially recognized by the government, which means that all Christian gatherings are illegal. All citizens of Bhutan are expected to follow Buddhism. Anyone who converts to Christianity will be watched with suspicion. Local Buddhist leaders and their family will likely try to reconvert them. Evangelical and Pentecostal communities are at risk of surveillance and raids by authorities. Christians are also forced to follow Buddhist rituals as part of paramilitary training. 37 Mexico population, 132.8 million, 109 million Christians. Leader, President Andrés Manuel López Obrador, persecution score 68. Although the majority of Mexico's population is Christian, many believers live in danger of persecution, particularly from criminal gangs and drug cartels. Christians who speak out against their activities or who are involved in community work or evangelism are deemed a threat, which makes them a target. In some indigenous communities, those who decide to abandon ancestral and traditional beliefs to follow Jesus face fines, incarceration, and forced displacement. 38 Egypt population, 108 million, 9.8 million Christians. Leader, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. Persecution score 68. Christians who have converted from Islam experience the most severe persecution in Egypt. Levels of persecution are higher in the Upper Egypt region, where Islamic hardliners are active, especially in rural communities. Several attacks on believers have been recorded in 2023. Christian men can experience lack of employment opportunities, women can be harassed in the street, and children can be bullied at school. The state also makes it impossible for converts to officially be recognized as Christians, denying them their rights. 39 Mozambique population, 34 million, 19.2 million Christians. Leader President Felipe Nyusi, persecution score 68. The rise of Islamic extremism in the north of the country is having a devastating impact on the lives of believers. Churches have been burnt down, pastors abducted, and many killed. Christians are also often caught in the crossfire of the ongoing conflict between government forces and jihadist groups, making them even more vulnerable to violence and displacement. The government also restricts religious freedom, and converts from Islam can face hostility from their families and society. 40 Qatar population, 3,414,000 Christians. Leader Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, persecution, score 67. For Qataris, conversion from Islam to another religion is forbidden, and those known to be Muslims aren't even allowed to enter a church. Most Christians are migrant workers and enjoy a degree of religious freedom. However, evangelizing to Muslims is strictly forbidden and can lead to prosecution and deportation. Many migrant workers live and work in poor conditions, while their Christian faith can add to their vulnerability. 41 DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo, population 98.2 million, 93.4 million Christians. Leader President Felix Tshisekedi, persecution score 67. Christians who live in the eastern part of the Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC, home to more than 100 armed groups, are at incredible risk for following Jesus. Christians in this part of the country are vulnerable to attacks, including murder, abduction, and sexual violence. Church leaders who speak out put a target on their backs. More than 5 million have been displaced by the violence, with many Christians among that number. 42 Indonesia population, 281.8 million, 34.6 million Christians. Leader, President Joko Widodo. Persecution score 66. The situation for Christians has been deteriorating in recent years, with Indonesian society increasingly influenced by conservative interpretations of Islam. Many converts from Islam experience pressure from their families, such as isolation and verbal abuse. The pressure is also higher in places like West Java or Aceh, where radical Islamic groups exert a heavy influence on society and politics. In some regions, church groups also face difficulties getting permission for building churches. 43 Cameroon population, 28.6 million, 17.6 million Christians. Leader President Paul Biya. Persecution score 66. The spread of Islamic extremist ideology continues to accelerate in North Cameroon, which means conversion from Islam to Christianity is more dangerous than ever. New converts are often forced to practice their faith in secrecy, and owning Bibles or any Christian literature can lead to threats and aggression. Ongoing fighting between the government and rebel groups has affected the church, with some rebel groups targeting Christians. Many churches are unable to function due to attacks and displacement. 44 Brunei population, 449,000, 54,200 Christians. Leader, Sultan Sir Hassan al-Bolkiah. Persecution score 66. As Sharia Islamic law continues to be implemented in Brunei, Christians face ongoing restrictions on living out their faith. Conversion from Islam is illegal, and pressure is intense for anyone who follows Jesus. Many Protestant churches are forced to register as businesses or secular organizations that must submit reports to the government each year. Bringing Bibles into the country is heavily controlled and rarely allowed outside of personal use. Any sharing of faith with Muslims is illegal. 45 Comoros population, 926,000, 4,700 Christians. Leader President Azali Assoumani. Persecution score 66. Christians are forbidden from sharing the gospel, and any distribution of Bibles or religious materials to a Muslim is legal. Christians who convert from Islam are the most likely to face severe persecution. Any Christian caught evangelizing can face a fine and up to a year in prison. Christian women are vulnerable to trafficking, and men can find themselves without work as employers favor Muslims. In some parts of the country, extremist groups are active and threaten believers. 46 Tajikistan population, 10.2 million, 63,100 Christians. Leader, President Emomali Rahmon. Persecution score 66. No religious activities beyond state-run institutions are allowed in Tajikistan. The majority of Christians belong to the Russian Orthodox Church, which is largely tolerated by the regime. However, registering Christian churches outside historical denominations is effectively impossible, and it's illegal for children under the age of 18 to take part in public religious activities. Christians from a Muslim background face additional pressure from their family and local community to renounce their faith. 47 Kazakhstan population, 19.4 million, 4.9 million Christians. Leader President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev. Persecution score 65. Religious freedom in the country has been under constant threat since legislation was introduced in 2011. For Christians, this means increased surveillance, raids on meetings, arrests and imprisonment. Any church outside of the Russian Orthodox Church is in constant danger of intense monitoring and crackdowns from the state authorities. Converts from Islam suffer the harshest persecution. They can be locked up by their families, beaten, and eventually kicked out of their communities. 48 Jordan population, 10.3 million, 170,000 Christians. Leader, King Abdullah II. Persecution, score 65. Many church communities may worship freely as long as they don't reach out to Muslims. Even so, the Jordanian state actively monitors all approved churches. Any Christian who is active in evangelism is known to support converts from Islam or belongs to an unrecognized church can experience pressure. Christians who convert from Islam can face threats of beating and killings, especially from their families and communities. Churches that evangelize can face harassment from Jordanian authorities. 49 Malaysia, population 33.6 million, 3.1 million Christians. Leader Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim, persecution, score 64. Every ethnic Malay is assumed to be Muslim, as defined by the Malaysian constitution. This means that any ethnic Malay who converts from Christianity is at risk of being punished under Sharia Islamic law. These converts can also face incredible pressure from their families and the broader community. Although they have more freedom to worship, historic Christian denominations or non-profits are watched by authorities, and any group thought to be evangelizing is at risk of official interference. 50 Turkey population, 86 million, 169,000 Christians. Leader President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, persecution, score 64. The combination of rising religious nationalism and a growing emphasis on Islamic values by the government is intensifying pressure in Turkey. Foreign Christians continue to be forced to leave the country or banned from returning, and historical Christian communities are monitored regularly by the government. Although conversion from Islam to Christianity is not legally forbidden, anyone who does convert is seen as a disloyal Turk and can face pressure from their families and communities. Well, that's the list of 50 countries with the highest persecution scores according to Open Doors. Is your country included in it? North Korea, Somalia, Libya, Eritrea, Yemen, Nigeria, Pakistan, Sudan, Iran, Afghanistan, India, Syria, Saudi Arabia, Mali, Algeria, Myanmar, Maldives, China, Burkina Faso, Laos, Cuba, Mauritania, Morocco, Uzbekistan, Bangladesh, Niger, Central African Republic, Turkmenistan, Nicaragua, Oman, Ethiopia, Tunisia, Colombia, Vietnam, Bhutan, Mexico, Egypt, Mozambique, Qatar, DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo, Indonesia, Cameroon, Brunei, Comoros, Tajikistan, Kazakhstan, Jordan, Malaysia, Turkey. Now, the good news is this report says persecution is growing, but so is the church. 1 in 7 Christians worldwide faces high levels of persecution and discrimination for their faith. That's 365 million of our brothers and sisters. This statistic comes from the latest World Watch List, an annual ranking of the countries where it's most dangerous to be a Christian. But it doesn't tell the whole story. 5 years ago, the figure was 1 in 9. In the past year alone, the number of persecuted believers has risen by about 5 million. Put simply, the persecution of Christians is worsening. One of the reasons it's getting worse because the church is growing. In the most hostile of environments, it continues to thrive. More than anything, it's a testament to the power of the gospel and the eternal truth that God's word is not chained, 2 Timothy 2:9. But it's also because the global church is standing with its most vulnerable members. It's what family does. However, as the findings of the latest report show, this help cannot waver. Indeed, your prayers and support are arguably more crucial than they have ever been. So let us pray and support the church. That's all for this video. If you find this video helpful, share it as much as possible. See you in the next video. Jesus bless you.